Gather round, everyone, and prepare to be swept away by the thrilling exploits of Gino Cuddy, Clive Davis, and Nick Sheehan as they embark on a daring journey across the silent screen. They'll ride through the annals of film history, recounting the captivating saga of the silver screen's very first Western superstar. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast. I'm, of course, one of your hosts, Gino Cuddy, and I am here with my regular co-hosts, Nick Sheehan and Clive Davis. We are going to be discussing two films tonight in William S. Hart's career, those being Blue Blazes Rawden and Riddle Gawne from 1918. And we are actually going to have a special guest with us during the Riddle Gawne portion. And so let's get things off started here with Blue Blazes Rawden, which was released February 18th, 1918. It was produced by William S. Hart Productions, supervised by Thomas H. Ince, and distributed by Paramount Artcraft. It was preceded by a film that we have no access to entitled Wolves of the Rail. Blue Blazes Rawden was directed by William S. Hart with a story and screenplay by J.G. Hawkes. It was photographed by Joe August, and art direction was handled by G. Harold Percival. And the cast consists of Blue Blazes Rawden being portrayed by William S. Hart, Babette Dufresne being portrayed by Maud George, Mother Hilgard being portrayed by Gertrude Clare, Ladyfingers Hilgard being portrayed by Robert McKim, Eric Hilgard being portrayed by Robert Gordon. And how's this? I was ecstatic when I saw this name in the cast. Joe LaBarge being portrayed by a man going by the name of Hart Hoxsey. Well, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Hart Hoxsey would later change his name to Jack Hoxsey and would become one of the biggest B-Western stars of his day. And he was part of rodeos and everything else. I believe his big breakout starting in films was a serial for the Arrow Film Corporation entitled Lightning Bryce, which I believe ran for 15 chapters. So it's rather interesting to see a future cowboy star and an already established cowboy star going at it in a bar fight. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here, so let me get into the plot. Blue Blazes Rawden, daredevil leader of a lumber gang, visits Timber Cove to spend his pay. Hilgard, an Englishman from a good family who has turned crook and later becomes owner of the dance hall, has an altercation with Rawden over possession of Babette Dufresne. He challenges Rawden, who stakes his winnings against the ownership of the hall. Rawden wins, and a fight follows in which Hilgard is shot by Rawden. Mrs. Hilgard and her son Eric arrive in town to see the oldest son. Rawden, in order to ease the old lady's heart aches, tells her that Hilgard died a natural death and was loved by all. The kindness of the old lady works a reformation in the heart of Rawden. He plans to leave, but Babette tells Eric Hilgard the truth. Eric attempts to murder Rawden, who later saves the boy from the hangman's noose. Rawden, badly wounded, leaves to take the long trail alone. Now, this is a film that is remarkably not a Western, but also this film was a film that we had brought up earlier in our podcast as a film, as a potential remake of a earlier Hart film entitled Keno Bates' Liar. Now, did any of you go back and watch Keno Bates' Liar in comparison with Blue Blazes Rawden, and did you see the connection there?
Yeah, I mean, the central plot conceit, which is, the major difference is that they've replaced the young lady with an old lady. It's the mom in this case. Where it's a sister in Keno Bates' Liar, right? So basically, but it's the same basic deal. He kills somebody who's a jerk, and then that person's family member shows up, and then in the case of Keno Bates' Liar, he falls in love with the girl. And she's the one who ends up shooting him at the end. So she shoots him, and then I can't remember if they make up or I can't remember the ending very well. But anyway, so that central kind of idea is the same in both films, right?
Right. Right. And while watching this, I have to say that this is at least in the earlier part of the film. And by the way, this came from my Sinister Cinema collection, and it has that glorious Sinister Cinema logo at the beginning of it. Um, Now, it should be noted that during at least the early half of the film, which was a breeze to watch, it didn't. There were no slow spots. I feel in this film. Um, your opinions may vary, but it felt to me that in at least the earlier part of this film, before Mrs. Hilgard arrives, that this is Hart at his most animated. I felt like I have like this like usually his performances are rather subdued, but in this he's a rather animated lumberjack who, you know, would probably go to the bar and give you a really rough pat in the back and say, "Hey boy, how about a drink?"
Oh yeah,
And
I for a moment I
I
was
don't know if that was supposed to sound as sinister as you made it sound, Gino, but that sounds terrifying.
no, for me, I was I mean, it's funny. It just comes up because yeah, on the one hand, some people have criticized Hart as being potentially stiff or wooden, and I don't think so. I really don't think at any stage of his career that we've seen him in that I would accuse him of that. But in this case, yeah, he goes way over the top. I almost thought I was watching like the future Timothy Carey, like the whole scene where he kind of has the face off with Ladyfingers, which by the way, I would like you guys to refer to me as Ladyfingers O'Houlihan.
Nick, we already do.
Oh, good, good, excellent. No, so yeah, the scene where he kind of where Ladyfingers calls him a coward, and then he flips right out, right, and then
right.
they go into the room together, and they have this kind of struggle and this face off. Yeah, William S. Hart's gone off the rails. Like it's an astonishing piece of.
It is a bit unusual. Yeah, we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and it's and not just that he's wildly overacting, and which I appreciate. I like actors who go over the top. This is not a surprise. I love Timothy Carey. Well, I get to bring him up. My favorite Cuban actor, Thomas Millian. I like an actor who swings for the fences. But not just that, but the film itself is going crazy because they suddenly intercut scenes of him freaking out with shots of wolves howling and stuff, which we've also haven't
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
before. Like this, yeah, very
So
expressionistic David Lynch
I,
approach. What is interesting though is apparently this is the film. So Blue Blazes Rawden is the film that Buster Keaton is specifically parodying with his The Frozen North, which is his William S.
oh,
Hart, parody. And it is set in the North, and it is a kind of it's very much a snowy, wintry,
a
lumberjack kind of.
forest primeval, as the intertitles have it,
Yes, yes. I mean, it's
before the
interesting.
destroyers come in. It's a very
The opening parts, yeah, very eco.
yeah, it's very progressive. I was quite surprised by that.
Yeah, and cool shots of Willie Metz and the other guy just hacking that tree down. But yeah, no, that whole opening scene is quite powerful. But then it's Canada too, which is always interesting for
Yes,
me
Yeah.
as
yes.
an adopted Canadian. And it's French Canada because we get a lot of intertitle faux French accent stuff going on.
And people called
This,
frog eaters, of course.
Yes,
yes,
yes, yeah. At
yes.
one point, you're right. William S. Hart calls the guy behind the
There's
counter.
some good intertitles actually in this one. Some of them they're a little more poetic than usual. Yes, I can see your face there.
And there's a few
But
that
some of
are
them are a bit more
problematic.
problematic, and yeah, we'll get to that. But the ones that aren't problematic
Yes, you're right. They're actually
are
well written.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
a
no, and
lost art if ever there was one, right? The well-written intertitle, like
I
Mm.
I will say that for me, this thing is a film of two halves, and I really like the first half of this film, and the second half for me flags and loses some of the wild energy of the first half. Partly because I realize I really like Robert McKim. This is not the first time we've seen him play a sleazeball in a William S. Hart film, right? He showed up in a couple of them.
Hmm.
I think he's Draw Egan. He's in Hell's Hinges. But
He's in The
yeah,
Disciple as the doctor that takes William S. Hart's wife.
right. Yeah, yeah. So he's always a great little kind of sleaze bag.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, no, yeah. So man, this I really like the first half of this. I think it just
Yeah.
goes. It's hell to popping. It's
I mean,
really exciting.
it's like you said, the first, not to an extreme maybe, but it's something a bit different, and then it settles down to the greatest hits a little bit, doesn't it? In the second half, it's kind of
Yes.
stuff that we've seen a slight variation on it, but basically stuff we've seen before.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose William S. Hart's been accused of going back to this well, a lot, right? But it's a very Victorian well he goes back to, the idea of it's either the child or the young woman or the mother figure, who is the road to salvation, right? Who is the good woman, right?
Hmm.
Who kind of
Right.
helps out William S. Hart. In this one, the the switch is so abrupt and he's so over the top and quite honestly scary in the opening segments of the film that it was harder for me to believe that he could do this instantaneous kind of like flip-flop over when
Yeah.
sad mom shows up and the young Oxford boy or whatever, the younger brother, right? So
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah, I do like that stuff is like in Blue Blazes Rawden, and you're like, okay, fair enough. We've heard these hyperbolic kind of, nicknames before, and he's the king of the loggers, and you know, king of the jacks and all that. But no, when when it when it's kind of revealed like quite what a force of nature he is, that is very well played. I think I like that, and it's a shame that does. It's almost like I'd like to, because he almost switches to a different character almost, right? Rather
mm,
than
yeah,
reforms. Exactly. It's just like a different kind of. So I'd like to see just him blaze through the whole film like that.
like completely manic. Yeah.
Yeah,
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 and he really does. Like even when he's being romantic, when he's first trying to woo Babette, like he's scary. It's like
Mm,
he like grabs her by the shoulders and gets right in her face, and he's just like he's manic. Um, and you can believe it. Not that long ago, actually, we had in a way kind of frontier stuff going on again in Canada, like the oil sands in Alberta. My understanding is from people I know who went up there to work in the oil sands, like that it was just like this. It was just madness, just like
mm.
frontier justice. Everyone's constantly. I'm not even going to get into. Anyway, it was yeah. This kind of stuff still goes on. Um,
they were barbarians. They used their soup spoon to eat their dessert.
exactly, Clive.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but but no, as I said, for me too, there is something nice about the change in scenery. In fact, some of the scenes, like so, the final scene. Um, Spoilers, I guess, but the final scene is quite beautiful of him kind of wandering off into just
Mm.
disappear basically into this snow-strewn pine landscape. Um,
And
yeah,
it's the second time in a William S. Hart film where he's just gone off into the cold world by
I
himself.
was gonna say, yeah, yeah,
yes, it is.
yeah. Maybe more satisfying here than previous.
Yes. Yes.
Because he hasn't just been cuckolded in this case.
Yes.
Right.
And again, with apologies to Geraldine Smith, we'll stop harping on this. But yeah.
um, but no, it's funny. I would say overall, I don't know this is a huge success as a whole.
Hmm.
But damn, the first half of this is great. Uh,
Yes.
really, really good. And as you were saying about Jack Hoxsey as well, I was stunned by his hairstyle. He has this kind of hair that I associate entirely with late 80s, early 90s skaters. Uh, this kind of like, like it's really quite, yeah, quite modern looking. Well, that's, I guess the 90s are no longer modern, Nick. Get with the times. But anyway, um, yeah, and then all the flannel, the combination of his hairstyle and all the flannel made me think we were in Seattle circa like 1990. A lot of grunge music happening, I'm guessing, in
Frozen North, yeah, a lot of
the Frozen North.
Nirvana, Pearl Jam, yeah. I could see I could see what's his character's name? Jack
Like
uh
Hoxie,
Joe LaBarge. I could
Joe
see him
LaBarge.
listening to some Pearl Jam or some
Oh
Alice in
yeah.
Chains.
Oh, let us not do him a disservice. At least he's listening to Nirvana or Mudhoney, or
Okay.
let us not mention those pearly. Ugh, don't like them.
Um, but
Although good collaboration with Neil Young in Mirrorball.
I don't think I've ever heard that. Okay, good to know.
Surprisingly good. I understand you'd avoided it because it's Pearl Jam, so you should. But
Hmm.
Mirrorball is actually quite good.
Okay.
So yeah, I like this movie. I thought it ran at a good pace. I mean, it's not one that I think I'll go back to, very often, but man,
Hmm.
what a performance William S. Hart gives. I think this is his most broad performance, his most manic performance, but my God, what a performance. Like if the Oscars had existed back then, like give it to Hart, you know?
Actually, the scene I couldn't, because it's silent as well. You end up kind of putting your own dialogue in, whether you mean to or not. That. So the scene where there's the scene where Ladyfingers has tried to kind of stack the deck by he has one of the guys who's in the bar steal William S. Hart's gun, take all the bullets out, and then put them back in without the charges, right? So that when it comes time to when they're going to draw on each other, William S. Hart's not going to have any bullets in his gun. So when that actually happens, he ends up firing. And at first, I thought he'd hit William S. Hart's character, but I think he's missing him at near point blank range over and over again. And William S. Hart keeps throwing his hands out, and I all I can imagine was him bellowing like "Come at me, bro." There was
Yes.
something absolutely come at me, bro, about that whole like,
But that's the bit I was thinking about in terms of like God, I'd like to see this character, because he has no idea. He literally thinks he's invincible, right?
yes,
At that point.
yeah.
That bit is
No,
definitely a standout.
It's kind of funny, that I used the word manic earlier because, maybe Blue Blazes Rawden is an early example of a bipolar character on film, you know?
totally
Interesting.
could
Yeah.
be actually. No, I don't think that's actually there's some real yeah, because in fact he then switches to being quite kind of sad and
Yeah,
low energy for the back half of the film, right? After going
right.
through this kind of episode, right? Um, no, you could well be right. Huh. And actually, the way that the death comes down is also like it's quite intense because basically they're struggling over the gun, and William S. Hart slowly turns the guy's hand with the gun in it back towards himself, and like uses his own hand to fire directly at point blank into his chest. It's it's intense again, and it's yeah, it's not necessarily what you expect, I think.
Yeah, I mean the thing is people, before John Wayne and Yakima Canutt really perfected fight choreography, people like to sort of, take pot shots at pre John Wayne Yakima Canutt fight choreography. But honestly, in a lot of Hart's films,
Yeah.
the brawls look legitimate.
Yeah.
They do look rather intense. So I think something that could be said at least for his films. I'm not sure about any other films that involve fight choreography of this nature. But yeah, I mean that was a very intense scene. And then Hart, instantly, like almost like a snap of the fingers, like, oh my God, I just indirectly killed a man,
Mhm.
and everything else, and feeling and it's funny how the entire like bar, the entire saloon, just like their loyalties spin right away. Like all of a sudden Joe DeBarge is like, you know, yeah, I'm cool with Hart now. Yeah,
Yeah.
he beat me in a brawl earlier, but we're cool, bro. You know?
Um, there's something that was brought up in movies silently. Uh, the website that writes about they've written reviews. I brought them up before. They've written a lot of reviews of
Mm-hmm.
William S. Hart's films. But there's this one was interesting. Apparently, in 1918, a sharp-eyed viewer noticed this issue with the film and wrote into Photoplay magazine. Um, it says, Joe sure must have been excited. In the scene where Rawden was shot by the kid, Joe, that veteran of many a fierce fight, became so absorbed or frightened to death that he stood for several minutes with his hand calmly reposing on a red-hot stove. And there's actually they've actually reproduced a still from the film. There is so basically, yeah, Joe is leaning with his hand on top of a stove top, which, given that it's super super snowy outside, we would assume it is a working stove, and he should definitely not have his hand on it for like 3 minutes. Um, so a very early flaw, I guess. Um,
Well, hey, Jack Hoxie's a tough son of a gun, so
that's true. That's
I
very
mean,
true.
I mean, being in rodeos and everything, that I bet this was, oh, my hand's on a hot stove.
Yeah,
I've gotten kicked
whatever.
in the ass by a horse so many times before. Like, this is nothing, you know?
Um, I will say, so one thing that this does have in common with Kino Bates Liar is he does the same thing where he goes back into an entire bar full of patrons, or an entire town, I think in that case, and tells everyone, everyone's got to keep my secret. Nobody tell her that I killed a guy. Which
Right.
again, challenging thing to do. Don't they say that thing about, three men can keep a secret if two of them are dead? It'd be even more challenging to do it with an entire town full of people. And then also you do have the kind of, I think Louise Glaume played um the character that kind of
Unravels everything.
in the same way than this one it is. And then we didn't bring it up, but we probably should bring it up. Yeah, there's some really sketchy intertitle stuff around her being
A half breed.
half indigenous, and then like yeah, there's some like yeah, anyway.
Well, she is full on called a savage as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then like her attraction to um Blue Blazes is kind of framed as being like the animal attraction of like, to a wild wolf or whatever that,
Right.
appeals to her nature. It's all coded in ways
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
not maybe not okay then,
No, I mean
definitely not
we've
okay now.
there's been a few other instances along this little journey we've been on where we've given the benefit of the doubt. But in this case, yeah, no, this
Yeah.
this is not cool. It wasn't cool then. It's not cool now.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right?
But, yeah, yeah. I mean, it certainly represents the attitudes of the time,
Mm.
but they were just weren't very progressive attitudes. Um, but but no, yeah. As I said, this one is fun
Yeah.
for the first half, and then a little bit less fun for the back half. But yeah, I really appreciated seeing, and it may be because I mean this is co-directed, right? This is William S. Hart in the director's chair, but also I think maybe. Um, or is it just him? Is he the only person?
Just him, I think.
Just him. Okay, there we go. So it's interesting. So he himself has chosen to let himself go wild here, right?
Well, that's sometimes what happens, right? When you let, yeah, that's how these things happen from time to time when there's no one to rein you in, right?
Ah, so this is like this is like Kenneth Branagh in Frankenstein then. No one's there to be like, hey, dial it back, Kenneth. Too much.
Right.
But that's fine for me because I like my scenery chewed and it's well chewed here.
He devours the scenery in this.
Yeah.
I'm telling
He didn't need lunch.
No.
I'm full. Full
you.
of scenery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, cool to see him in the little fur hat and the plaid flannel jacket thing.
Okay. We have run out of things
Yes,
to
I
talk
think
about
so.
now. If you're saying
Yeah,
looking lovely in his little
he
fur hat.
was.
I
He
mean,
was.
this is, yet another. I mean, wasn't he kind of in this same vein in the Darkening Trail where he plays sort of like another like Yukon, sort of like
Yes.
wild character? Like
Yeah.
this isn't the first time we've seen him like this, but it's more noticeable here than it
Mhm.
was in
Yeah.
previous
Yeah.
films. Yeah.
In the previous films, he's basically just a cowboy in a different uniform, if you see what I
Right.
mean.
Yeah.
Whereas this time he's a totally different kind of uh thing, a person or
Yeah.
persona, yeah.
Um, I'm looking forward. So there is a William S. Hart film that is extant where he plays a gangster? Am I understanding that right?
Yes, I believe that's The Cradle of Courage. That's one of his non-westerns. Yes.
Yeah, I'm quite interested to see that, like how that's gonna to see him in a gangster role. Yeah, anyway, so we'll have to wait and see. I don't know how far out we are from seeing that at this point, but
Well,
Yeah, I'm imagining if it's a bit like after all those years of seeing, John Wayne in westerns, and he suddenly does like McHugh or something like that, right?
yes.
Flanagan, yeah.
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 Yeah, it's so just a little bit of an FYI. We only have about five more after this. We only have about five more episodes worth of films to review because a lot of the other ones we don't have access to, unfortunately. And so that's going to be fun when we get to that. A film that I can't wait to hear you guys, discuss is his other non-western that he made around that time, which is a film called The Whistle.
Hmm.
It's a film that almost it predates Metropolis and sort of its labor,
Oh,
commentary. You know,
interesting.
yeah. I mean, Clive, you'll hate it because there's a kid character in it, and it's sort of like the main focal point of the film. But
Pack
you
that
know.
shit. We're not watching that.
But it's from what I remember of The Whistle, it was rather an interesting little film, and I found it to be quite enthralling. Even though it wasn't a western, I found it to be quite a great little film and an underrated one. Because
It's a labor unrest kind of labor relations drama.
yeah, I
Ah,
mean, just to give a little bit of the plot away, basically, William S. Hart, is like a blue collar dad, and he and his son both work in this factory, and William S. Hart has, multiple times warned his boss, about the conditions in the factory, and then William S. Hart's son winds up getting killed in the factory, and William
Oh,
S.
Clive,
Hart's
that'll work for you.
yeah,
That'll
sounds good. I'm into this now.
and William S. Hart winds up snapping, and he winds up kidnapping the boss's son and passes him off as his own until he starts seeing the
Oh,
boss's wife deteriorating health wise, and then he has a change of heart and everything else. But rather interesting film, and I can't wait
yeah,
to
that
see.
sounds
that
fascinating.
sounds really, yeah. And in fact, it reminds me of there's a weirdly enough, I wonder if it was an inspiration on a much later um Italian crime film where it has a kind of a sort of a semi-similar plot. So that's
Couldn't help yourself there, could you, Nick?
no, but I'm also thinking like when did the jungle like I'm wondering when did the jungle get written by Upton Sinclair and those kind of
25 or something, isn't it?
yeah. So
A little bit later
it's kind
on.
of in the air. Yeah, it might be a bit later, but but it was kind of yeah, those kind of stories were in the air, I suppose.
Yeah, as well as all the asbestos and all
And
the other shit
smog,
that was
yes.
bad.
And you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Particulates, yes.
Anyway, yes. So I believe suddenly in one of the lower quadrants,
Hmm.
a special guest will soon magically appear.
Hmm. Well, they would
Yes.
if this was a video podcast, Clive, but it's an audio
Oh
podcast.
fuck! I keep forgetting. Sorry. Yeah, you can
But yeah,
just imagine.
we do have just in the green room, we do have a special guest waiting that Gino has very kindly reached out to and
Mm,
gotten and somebody who is very much an expert on part of the subject of the next film we're going to talk about. So,
yeah.
All right.
So, shall we move on to that then?
mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to our second film, which is Riddle Gawne, which was released August 19th, 1918. This was produced by William S. Hart Productions and was supervised by Thomas H. Ince and distributed by Paramount Artcraft. This was directed by William S. Hart with a screenplay by Charles Eldon Seltzer from his story, The Vengeance of Jefferson Gawne. It was photographed by Joe August, and art direction was handled by G. Harold Percival, and the assistant director was regular William S. Hart collaborator Lambert Hillier. This film was preceded by three unavailable films, which we didn't have access to. Those films being The Tiger Man, Selfish Yates, and Shark Monroe. And before I get into the cast list, I do have to denote this. There is a character in this film who has a rather let's just say in the year 2026 would be deemed a rather reprehensible name, but in the interest of historical context, I will be reading the name aloud. So here's the cast: Jefferson Riddle Gawne being played by William S. Hart, Kathleen Harkness being portrayed by Catherine McDonald, uh, Hum Bazam being portrayed by Lon Chaney, Blanche Delon being portrayed by Gretchen Lederer, Jane Gawne being portrayed by Gertrude Short, Colonel Harkness being portrayed by E.B. Tilton, Reb Butler being portrayed by Milton Ross, Nigger Paisley being portrayed by George Field, Jess Cass being portrayed by Leon Kent. And the plot of this film is Riddle Gawne vows vengeance on the man who killed his brother and ran away with his faithless wife. He rescues Kathleen, a girl of refinement, from two cattle rustlers belonging to a band led by Haim Bazam, and they fall in love with each other. Bazam, jealous, has Gawne shot. Blanche, a friend of Bazam, nurses Gawne and contrives to poison Kathleen's mind against him. Bazam abducts Kathleen and Gawne follows him. In a fight, Gawne's leg is broken, and Bazam, thinking he is dead, admits he killed Gawne's brother and stole his wife. Gawne, despite his injury, strangles him. Kathleen appears and their love is renewed while she nurses Gawne back to health. And that was printed in the Moving Picture World of August 17th, 1918. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a film that unfortunately very little survives of it. And in order to fully discuss this film and its place in film history, we've actually brought along a special guest. And that special guest is none other than Mr. Michael F. Blake, who has written no less than 3 books on one of the stars of Riddle Gawne, which is Lon Chaney. Hello there, Mr. Blake. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And first off, I just want to ask, how integral was this film to Chaney's career?
Oh, it was a major step. Chaney had left Universal. He was making about $75 a week, which wasn't a bad salary, but he was getting recognized in reviews. He was a leading character actor on the lot at Universal. And the head of Universal, who also said Clark Gable had no potential because he had big ears and a space between his teeth. He told Chaney, "You'll never be worth $100 a week." So Chaney left Universal, and the next big part that came his way was the villain in Riddle Gawne. And interestingly, Hart has always said in his autobiography that he had to convince Lampert Hillier to hire Chaney as the villain. In truth, Lampert Hillier's mother had seen Chaney in a 1917 Universal film where he played the villain called Hell Morgan's Girl, and she told her son Lampert, "You might want to look at this guy for the villain." And Lampert actually had to do a selling job to William S. Hart. But in any case, it was a major step up for Lon. And you're working for William S. Hart, who at the time was one of the major stars of the silent era. So it would kind of be like you had been doing these streaming TV series for Amazon, and suddenly Tom Cruise calls you up, and you're going to play the villain opposite Tom Cruise in the next Mission Impossible film. It was that kind of a level step up for Chaney.
Now, another question that I have is there are apparently a couple of reels held at the Library of Congress. Now, have you had a chance to view what's on those reels and see if there's any more footage containing both Chaney and Hart?
Well, the only footage I've ever seen is the one that came out of the Russian archive Glasfilmophon. And it's about 2 reels. And Chaney's in some of the reel, not very much. I mean, if you do a YouTube search, and type in Riddle Gawne, you'll find about 26 minutes or not 26 minutes. I wish 26 seconds. So whatever Library of Congress has, I have not seen yet. But there's a little bit, when I did my third book on the films of Lon Chaney, the only footage known to exist was the ones out of the Russian archive.
Do you have any indication that, I mean, it's so difficult to judge from what we have, right? I mean, did he step up to the plate, and was he a very formidable, kind of memorable villain that people were talking about, or was it not considered his finest hour, or do we have any critical appraisal of that?
Well, let's see. Motion Picture News, or rather Film Daily, says Lon Chaney was an effective villain. He played opposite Hart, and he gave as good as he got. Chaney had a very strong presence, even at that point. Was it comparable to his performance in The Unknown, or Tell It to the Marines, or the better known Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Phantom of the Opera? It's hard to say when you've only got 26 seconds to judge. But
yes,
he does dominate the screen. He had a wonderful relationship with the camera called charisma.
He already has that lived-in face, doesn't he? When you see him, even if for 20 seconds you're like, "Oh, who's that man? I want to know his story," because he looks like he has a story. Do you know what I mean?
If you've seen a photo of Chaney, when you see these 26 seconds, there's no doubt it's Chaney.
Right.
He just, of course, for me, my eyes go right to what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And he's in the scene, he's talking with this young lady, and he takes his hat off, and he's very charming and he's not villainous at all in the sequence that you can see.
No, but slightly, you can see there might be a sinister undertone, a little.
Well, the best kind of villain is it can be charming and then be ruthless with the snap of a finger.
Yeah, he seems very comfortable. Like that's the thing that in this very brief moment we see him, he just seems so relaxed. He doesn't seem stagey at all.
No. He's like a rock almost. He's just like there. He belongs on the screen, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's a very natural. Like I mean, again, I made probably a wrong impression of silent film tending towards that more stagey, overacted. But he seems like you could imagine him on screen now. In an episode of The Wire or something like that, like something that calls for a very natural approach.
If he didn't have a good director, he could get a little overboard at times. Not a lot, and as time went on, he was certainly a better director for himself. He knew what would work, what wouldn't work.
Right.
And he just, I have a still photo in my collection where he's straddling William S. Hart with the pistol pointed at Hart's face. And he's got this look on him like, you wouldn't want to meet this guy. He's just got this tremendous strength and tremendous fire in his face. So, yeah, he would have made a great villain opposite Hart.
Who knows if the film had survived, and we might have seen Alejandro Jodorowsky doing a kind of homage to this as opposed to The Unknown, right?
Yeah. I would love to see him and do the westerns he did. The only one western that exists complete is a 1914 film called By the Sun's Rays, and again he plays the villain. But I'd love to see him. He was quite a horseman. Maybe not as good as Ben Jonson, but he was pretty darn good because he grew up around horses all his life. Right. But I would love to have. I wish MGM would have put him in a Western when he was under contract there. That would have been I would have loved to have seen that.
So, something that I mean, again, I know next to nothing, sadly, about Mr. Lon Chaney. So, in reading the opening part of your book, I was stunned to read that both of his parents were hearing impaired, that they were both deaf, and
Yeah.
that he had to communicate with them as a child via sign language, and then later on, some of his acting may have been a result of w wanting to be able to better communicate with his parents. But yeah, I had no idea about this feature of his childhood at all.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you talk to a deaf person, you just don't simply use your fingers to sign. You use your whole body. You know, if you want to say something, oh, that movie was bad, you go, movie. You know, you use your
Right.
face, you express
Emphasis.
yourself.
Yeah.
So it was only natural that it was a perfect way for Chaney to move into acting. Um, and his maternal grandparents founded the first deaf and blind school in Colorado Springs, and it's still there to this day.
Wow.
Mm.
And his great, I got to go back here. His great great grandfather was a member of the United States Congress and served at the same time some fellow from Tennessee by the name of Davy Crockett was in office.
Never
Wow.
heard of him.
No.
Wow.
Isn't he the fellow that killed Tim Bar when he was only 3?
Yeah.
Um, awesome.
Yeah.
Now, going back to Riddle Gawne, most of that was shot in an area of the San Fernando Valley, which today is heavily suburbanized. But they shot a lot of it out in, I'm looking at my notes here, in the Santa Monica Mountains and in the area called Chatsworth. Now, just around Chatsworth, there's a place called Iverson Ranch, which since at least 1916 was used in movies, mostly B movies. Um, but Cheney's Tell It to the Marines shot a sequence there, supposed to take place in China. A lot of people might know it well from the opening of The Lone Ranger when the Lone Ranger rides Silver up and Silver goes up on his hind legs.
Yeah.
That's called Lone Ranger Rock. John Ford shot portions of Stagecoach at Iverson Ranch. Um, any Western, they died with their boots on with Errol Flynn. Any Western probably shot there. And certainly a lot of the television Westerns shot there. But in 1918, it was, there might have been a couple of ranches, but it was primarily open space. But if you go on Google Earth now and look up Chatsworth, it's, homes. There are some rocks left of Iverson Ranch. There's a very small portion left, but that they didn't develop. But they did develop a lot of homes around it. But that was a prime movie location for Westerns and a lot of other things, over the years. But they shot out there. And, back in those days, they worked 6, 7 days a week. And they roughed it out there. There was no Motel 6 out there. They set up tents and you lived in a tent. And, you had an outhouse somewhere and maybe a water drum, big oil drum filled with water. And that was your shower. So it was quite rough back in those days. And even into the 20s, it was that way.
Now,
But it was a lot of fun too, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now, I am wondering, did Chaney, I know that he passed away quite young, but did he ever recall his work on this film? What did he think of working with William S. Hart, and what did William S. Hart think of working with Chaney in this film?
Well, all I know about what Bill Hart thought of Chaney comes from his autobiography. I do know I've read a couple of interviews in the early 20s with Chaney, and he was very grateful to Hart for the break he got from him. He didn't speak a lot about Bill Hart, but he was very grateful to him for the break he gave him and really helped his career along. But that's all I've ever found about him talking about Hart. But certainly, Hart gave him a huge boost, like I said, in his career. You can see that because shortly after that, the following year, he does his first movie with Todd Browning, who he wind up doing 7 films with. And of course, the big breakthrough, The Miracle Man. So, and that was all tied to as the result of Chaney's career at Universal, but also doing the movie with Hart, because that opened doors for him. Because Universal was considered, it wasn't a major, they never owned theater chains like Paramount did, or Fox did, or Lowe's, who owned Metro Pictures, and then later became MGM. They owned theater chains, so they had to make movies to supply that. Universal went to the smaller theaters generally. They would play maybe a big theater in New York, but they had to negotiate a deal. They didn't own any theater chains where they could just say, well, we'll put this movie in our theater and play it.
Huh.
They had to go around. So Hart's movie really opened the doors for Lon, because it was, like I said, it was William S. Hart was one of the major stars at that time. You had Mary Pickford, Charlie Chaplin, Fairbanks, Bill Hart, and a couple of others that were becoming major stars, but a lot of them faded out. Fatty Arbuckle, tragically. And others were just coming up, like Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton. But the best example I gave was, imagine doing a something for Netflix, and the actors plucked and given the lead villain role in a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie.
Which I think has actually happened, right? That is actually a very good analogy.
Yeah. So it was a big difference. Paramount at that time was one of the major studios. And like I've said, Bill Hart was one of the major stars. So, it was just a big feather in Chaney's cap. And it gave him more, I think it gave him more attention to other filmmakers than maybe some of his Universal films, although people did pay attention to him. I just think because Hart was such a major star that, oh, look at this guy. And he dominated the role as the villain. So,
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for listening to this latest episode of Heart to Heart, the William S. Hart podcast. I have been Gino Cuddy. That's been Clive Davis, and that's been Nick Sheehan. And we would also like to extend a personal thank you to Mr. Michael F. Blake, who has written no less than 3 books on Lon Chaney, and is also a film historian, has written books on John Ford as well, and has also been an actor and a makeup artist, just a marvelous jack of all trades. And we thank him for taking the time out of his busy schedule and talking to we 3 about the film Riddle Gawne and the impact that it had on Lon Chaney's career. And that,
if I may interrupt you there, Gino, I would also just like to second, that was really good having Michael on, actually.
Yes.
And if he ever wants to come on, at any time to talk about anything, really, I'm sure we'd all agree he's more than welcome, right?
Correct. And I guess that about does it. We are going to have, I'm in the works, working on getting 2 guests for our next program as well.
Wow.
And that ought to be rather interesting. I'm working on getting Bill West of Hart Park and Ray Lowe, who performs the music to the silent films that play at Hart Park. Because the next film that we're going to be discussing is going to be Square Deal Sanderson, which comes courtesy of a DVD produced by Mr. West and has music by Ray Lowe. So we're going to have both of them on to discuss not only the music, but the Hart Park itself and what they're doing. So that ought to be interesting. So be on the lookout for that. But I guess that about does it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for listening. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, iHeartRadio Podcasts, wherever you can find great podcasts like this. And I guess that about does it. And in the words of William S. Hart, adios amigos. God bless you all, each and every one. Good night.
This has been a Gino Cuddy podcast production.